All right, let's kick this off by talking about what's literally the foundation of anything you print, a garment's fabric. It's like if you don't get this right, forget about how good your design might look because honestly, bad fabric choices just ruin everything.
Yeah, and the thing is, you've got what three main categories we always talk about: cotton, polyester, and blends. Each one has its own quirks.
Exactly. Cotton, let's start there. It's like the original t shirt material. Everybody loves it, feels soft, breathable, easy to wear, but
But the print quality depends on how tight the weave is, right? Ring spun cotton is perfect because the fabric's smoother and the fibers are shorter. So for DTG printing, it's a dream.
yeah, but you get into basic cotton, the kind you snag at bargain suppliers, and your prints can look cheap. Colors kind of fade faster too. What about screen printing with cotton, though?
Well, screen printing on cotton's forgiving in a way. It holds ink well, especially thicker inks, but here's the problem.
There's always a problem.
Yeah, always. Cotton shrinks, especially if the fabric hasn't been pre-shrunk, so your prints may warp over time. It's great, but not perfect.
Okay, so let's talk polyester, a total diva in the fabric lineup. You want to love it because, like, it's crazy durable, moisture wicking, and holds vibrant colors. But then you print on it, and suddenly it's like, why does this look so inconsistent?
Yeah, poly is tricky. Static, color migration, ink adhesion issues. And if you're using screen printing, you've got to work with special inks like plastisol with a low cure additive to prevent dye migration. Ever had a red polyester with white ink that turns pink? That's dye migration.
The pink prints on red shirts, been there, and blended fabrics, polyester cotton mixes, like, are they the happy medium?
Sort of. They dodge some of the pitfalls of both cotton and polyester. Depending on the blend percentage, they kind of balance softness and durability, but higher poly content still has issues with screen printing.
Oh, totally. A 60-40 mix, fine. But when you start inching up to 70-30 or those tri blends, it's a fight just to make it look good. And don't even get me started on how blends behave with DTG. All right, so we've unpacked the whole cotton, poly, and blend story, the pros, the cons, the headaches, but now let's get into the heart of it, print quality, because honestly, it's not just about the fabric, it's about how well that fabric plays with ink, and that's where things get interesting.
Exactly. Ink adhesion's really where the science kicks in. Cotton's always solid for that, especially ring spun because the smooth surface helps the ink bond. But polyester,
Oh, polyester's like the bad date who ghosts you after dinner. It just doesn't commit. Like you put the ink down and it's sliding all over the place or cracking after one wash.
right? And that's because polyester's fibers don't absorb ink the same way. You're relying on the ink to sit on the surface, which means it's more prone to issues. Think about dye migration or even just poor adhesion with DTG prints. It all ties back to the fabric structure.
And that affects color vibrancy too, doesn't it? Like with cotton, those reds and blues pop, but on poly, they kind of fade out or look uneven.
Totally. Colors sink into cotton, which helps with vibrancy, but poly's like, nah, I'm just going to sit here and do whatever. That's why pre-treatment for DTG becomes so critical. Without it, forget about vibrant prints.
Yeah, pre-treatment is like the primer coat for DTG printing. It gives the ink a bit of grip, right? But honestly, it's only half the battle when you're working with tough fabrics.
Exactly, and for blends like high poly content ones, pre-treatment helps, but it doesn't solve every problem. Sometimes switching inks or techniques is your only real option.
That's the thing. You've got to adjust. Like if you're running into issues with ink cracking or fading, you can't just double down on your process. You've got to figure out what the fabric's telling you and tweak accordingly.
Yeah, and that might mean switching to more specialized inks, like discharge inks for screen printing on darker cottons, or using a low cure plastisol to avoid dye migration on poly. The fabric pretty much dictates what's possible.
So it's not just about the final look, it's about making sure the durability's there too. You don't want to sell a shirt that looks amazing off the press, but comes back looking like it survived a war after 2 washes.
Exactly. The balance between durability and vibrancy, that's where every material has its trade-offs. You choose the right fabric, not just for color, but for how the shirt's going to live its life, you know?
So, speaking of balancing durability and vibrancy, let's get into some real world examples. You remember that nightmare job from First Amendment Tees, right? The one with the tri blend hoodies?
Oh, yeah. That one was a total headache. Tri-blend fabric mixed with high poly content. It was practically begging for dye migration issues.
Right? And the client wanted this super clean, bright white ink, like not cream, not light gray, white on a heathered navy hoodie. That's like the perfect storm for everything to go wrong.
Exactly. We had to switch up everything, starting with the ink. Regular plastisol wasn't cutting it, so we used a low cure plastisol with a dye blocking base. That helped a ton with keeping the white ink, white.
What did you say during that test run? The hoodie was like fighting back?
Yeah, it felt that way. Even with the right ink, the texture of the fabric was a challenge. Tri-blends have that soft, almost fuzzy finish, which makes it harder for the ink to bond evenly, so we had to adjust the screen tension and use a finer mesh to get cleaner details.
And wasn't there an issue with the curing temperature too? Something about the high heat making everything worse?
Yeah, that's the thing. Polyester in the mix meant we had to watch the curing temperature too high, and you get dye migration again. So we lowered the curing temp just enough to set the ink, but not trigger any of the fabric's quirks.
See, this is why people think we're magicians. Like, it's not just about pushing a button and getting a result. You're tweaking every single step to make sure the final product is perfect.
Absolutely, and that job was worth it in the end. The client was thrilled, and those hoodies held up perfectly even after multiple washes. It's one of those projects that makes all the stress worth it.
Totally. And I think the key takeaway here is you've got to respect the fabric. It's telling you how to work with it. You just need to listen and adjust.
Exactly. Every material has its personality. The difference between a good job and a great job is understanding those details, the devil's in the fabric. As they say, good products and good artwork make a good shirt.
On that note, I think we're good for today. This was awesome. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah, agreed. And that's a wrap. See you next time.